Today is again on Fomalhaut. This creates a kind of illusion, these four cardinal fixed stars. So as we've been exploring this illusion, what he says is that because the cycle is shifting and none of us really knows what that's going to mean, we can feel it. He says we're going to smell it, as far as the shift, the change, but we're in it now. When you talk about global cycles, obviously that's going to be a long swath of time, 412 years for this last one. When we talk about large life cycles, generally what we say is it's 3.5 years before and 3.5 years after for the full cycle to emerge. It's like you're going into the cycle before the actual moment of the cycle, and then you could kind of rise in it where we actually have the cycle. There's still this, you could say it's kind of a peaking influence, but you're not really actually immersed in it completely and able to really assess or grasp what it's like to be in that cycle, a life cycle now, until 3.5 years after the cycle actually hit. Okay, so think about your life cycles. Your 30s for Saturn, your 40s for Uranus, your 50s for Chiron. That means then that there is this orb of influence, you could say. The same thing is happening with our global cycles. Everybody's all, up in arms or scared or excited or whatever your emotions, your feelings might be. And this radical change, actually, we're already in it. We're in it now. And what Ra ties to Fomalhaut, there we go, is the 3955 mutation that's taking place, this cosmic turning off of the lights, the turn off of our genetic capability for our current humanity to have fertility. And as you know, I've been dealing with actually multiple autoimmune, my mind wanted to say illusions. Okay, fine, illusions, issues, challenges for some years now. Once you get one, it's easier to get more. And if we think about the entirety of the autoimmune community now, because there's millions of us, autoimmune is the body, its immune system actually very, very strong on wanting to attack something inside that is actually good tissue or your own body tissue. So he said that there would be a sharp contraction of human beings. And if you think about how the immune system attacking your own body, obviously that's going to be a challenge on fertility. So that's just one reason why we can see people having challenges with not only their lives, their livelihood, their issues of creating a family. Fertility is definitely on the rise. I'm one of those women who had to have in vitro fertilization in order to get pregnant myself. So Ross suggests that Fomalhaut, its movement towards the sun, is intensifying our illusion, this dome of illusion that we're under because of this is the last of the four cardinal fixed stars that is preparing us for the 2027 shift. And its cometary swarm symbolizes the unraveling of the old structures. We'll talk about the nature of Fomalhaut as a star because it's a very young, mutative star, the triggering mechanism. And it's as a relational identification, you could say that it's aligned with the 55, as in the core of our mutative force when it comes to this solar plexus, this emergence of consciousness in form. It's signaling 2027's shift, and the closing of the door is one of the things that Ross says about this, that this actual star is responsible for closing that door on the cross of planning. Okay, so the cross of planning completing. And he also notes that with this star, comparatively to the other stars that we've been taking a look at, its lack of lunar occultation. So that setting it apart from the other stars. So it amplifies its role as a trigger. If I think about what the moon means to me, it means nurturance. Happy Monday, Moon's Day. It means compassion and watery emotions. And we know that 55, it's very emotional. It's part of the stream of emoting. And this trigger in the cosmic program, this new young star, being very distinct from the other stars that we've been exploring. So here they are. And what Ra says is that because initially, he's doing his research, he looked back into the history books, and these stars are no longer in their cardinal positions because this dome of illusion, as he called it, they move. To us, doesn't look like they move because our lives are quite finite and short comparatively to the large life cycle, or not life, global cycles. So as a cardinal star, Fomalhaut is one of the four fixed stars that shapes the orb or the dome of illusion, Ra would say, within the orchestration of the mutation that's happening. So again, distinctly, this Fomalhaut does not get occulted by the moon, unlike Aldebaran, Regulus, and Antares that we have been taking a look at. So real brief review, if we could liken each of these stars to a quarter of the wheel, this Fomalhaut would be mutation, as in a young star. It's only 200 to 300 million years old, with a short lifespan as far as the star is concerned, 1 billion years. They can also call it the lonely star of autumn, ancient, remember, movement. So if Regulus is primarily about civilization, the one we took a look at last week, Antares is duality, and Aldebaran is initiation. Again, Fomalhaut, link it to mutation. So when it comes to the nature of this window into the world of the stars, remember, Aldebaran, the Arabian astrologers, connected this star to Moon and Mercury, and its filtering role is about logical processing. Remember, with Antares, we were looking at how Ra doesn't actually consider the Martian attributes that the ancients gave to it as important. Jupiter and the sun are more of the energetics that he links in human design with Antares, as far as the way that this star impacts us and our program that we live in. And the traditional association of Regulus with the sun and Mars again, he wanted us to leave it up to us as far as what it might feel like to us as far as exploring. So again, remember, you are your own authority. Go into this eyes wide open and see what it's like for you to truly be you. Regulus, again, being one of those stars that can be occulted by the moon. And what he said was that any star that can be occulted by the moon, so Antares and also Aldebaran, when it comes to these stars, that it had a very, very important signification, as in the moon is a great carrier of information, isn't it? It pulls us, it pushes us, it forces us. It's an orchestrating force for life on the planet, the moon is. So maybe you might find that, depending on your design, that you associate moon more strongly with Regulus rather than Mars. Up to you as far as what is it to be you. We're all unique and different. So Fomalhaut is a very odd star, according to Ra. We're going to dive into that. The lonely star, so-called cardinal royal stars. And he liked that pretty name, he thought, Royal Star of Autumn for Fomalhaut. And if you look at it, it kind of looks like it might be a whale. So the Arab name for it was the mouth of the whale. that's been the point of identification for a very, very long time. In Australia, they call it the mouth of the fish, very giant fish. If you've ever been in the water with a whale shark, they are just large fish. Incredible. So that's what it feels like to me. Whale, shark, looks like a fish, could be a whale. Whale sharks are like right in the middle there. So they're amazing creatures.